ought to be happening. And if it's not happening, then the question is, what is keeping you from growing? Now, that kind of sounds good because you go, yeah, I wonder what is keeping me from growing. Well, let me again make it very simple. What causes you to grow, or what keeps you from growing, is the one who is in charge of your growth, and that's God. God is the one who opens the womb. God is the one who closes the womb. Think about how many babies were born to Noah and his sons on the ark. 0. Nobody was born. They were on that thing a year. You'd think that some babies would have been born. But no, it didn't happen. Why? Because God is the one who opens the womb and shuts up the womb. God is the one who is in charge of that. It's not you and I. So they're selling you a gimmick. They're selling you a product based on something that really is out of your hands to begin with. But notice who the quotation is from. It's from a guy by the name of John Ortberg. Now, if you're into, or you are studying along with me and other people, Lighthouse Trails Research will have a ton of information on this guy, John Ortberg. He writes a book called The Life You've Always Wanted. It sort of sounds like Joel Osteen's Your Best Life Now. And basically, all these books, like Your Best Life Now and The Life You've Always Wanted, basically is setting you up, making you ask the question, couldn't I have everything that I've ever wanted? Couldn't I have everything better? Couldn't I have this? Couldn't I have that? The life you've always wanted. And then notice on the bottom it says 6 sessions on spiritual disciplines for ordinary people. Aha! Spiritual disciplines. Spiritual discipline. Where have I heard that before? Spiritual disciplines. You remember Ignatius, or who is it? Ignoramus de Loyola? No, Ignatius de Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, went into the occult world and ransacked all of their practices to train Jesuits. Basically what he was doing, he was bringing up Jesuit priests who were being controlled by familiar spirits. He called them spiritual exercises or spiritual formation practices. And so John Ortberg is a proponent of what he called spiritual exercises. Now, let me go back to Maryland Conspiracy. Let me go back to Marilyn Ferguson's The Aquarian Conspiracy on page 31. Here's what she says. Both accidentally and deliberately, people have had such experiences throughout history. Deep inner shifts may occur in response to disciplined contemplation, grave illness, wilderness treks, peak emotions, creative effort, spiritual exercises, controlled breathing, techniques for, quote, inhibiting thought, psychedelics, movement, isolation, music, hypnosis, meditation, reverie, and in the wake of intense intellectual struggle. You know what she's talking about? She's saying that the paradigm shift that's going to come, the Great Awakening, and she actually uses the term Great Awakening in here. She says this is all going to come about by people getting involved in spiritual exercises, disciplined contemplation, controlled breathing, techniques for inhibiting thought, hypnosis, meditation, and such like. Here's where I'm going with this. When I read this book, I'm seeing the same terminology coming out of Rick Warren. I'm seeing the same terminology coming out of Bill Hybels. I'm seeing the same ideas coming out of these new churches that are rising up. John Ortberg, let me go back to this book again, 6 sessions on spiritual disciplines for ordinary life. You know what he's going to teach you in there? He's going to teach you how to go into a trance and get in touch with this God who's trapped on the inside of you and hearing the voice of God. He's teaching you contemplative prayer. Contemplative prayer is getting in contact with familiar spirits. That's exactly what it is. And contemplative prayer involves a spiritual exercise of controlled breathing, sometimes music, and inhibiting thoughts. Because contemplative prayer is all about getting everything out of your brain and lowering, listen to this now, lowering your brainwave activity down to what's called an alpha state. It's almost close to hypnosis. But basically what you're doing is you're putting yourself into a trance, and then you're supposedly hearing God on the inside of you. Well, let me tell you what's wrong with that biblically. Number one, you're bypassing the mediator. That's dangerous. I cannot begin to tell you how dangerous it is for a normal human being to go around Jesus to get to God. He'll kill you for that. You have no right. You have no right to have access to the throne of God, but by the mediator, Jesus Christ. You have no right to that. The Israelites found that out. You know what the Israelites found out at the base of Mount Sinai when they saw the thunderings and the lightning and they heard the trumpet and they heard the voice of God? They backed away and they said, please don't have him talk to us anymore. He'll kill us. Moses, you go talk to him. Moses was showing the establishment of the office of a mediator. Contemplative prayer is a removal of the mediator for you to go directly to God. It's a setup. Dallas Willard, who is promoting the Monv program, that ought to tell you something right there. It's a setup for contemplative prayer. Now, let's go to the next little slide here that you see. It says, craft a growth plan based on who you are and what's in the way. What's in the way? Let me tell you, according to the occult thought and according to the devil, let me tell you what's in the way of the devil really getting a hold of you. It's this. This is in the way. You basing your theology on this is in the way. You basing your lifestyle on this is in the way. You basing your prayer life and your growth on this is in the way of what it is that they are trying to do. Think of 2 Thessalonians 2. Only he who now letteth will let until what? Until he be taken out of the way. What is it that the devil knew in order to get in the churches? What is it that the devil knew he had to get out of the way? It was the King James Bible. He had to go watch the video we did called The Missing Bible. By the way, when I go to Harrison, Arkansas next week, I will be probably talking about the Missing Bible and a bunch of other things. But this is in the way. They're going to try to get you to get this out of the way and start a new way so that you can quote-unquote grow and have all this stuff that you want. It's a setup. Let me go back to this graphic again. Here it is. Craft a growth plan based on who you are and what's in the way. Look down at the bottom. If you can, here's another quote now. We're gonna sell this thing to you, and we're going to put a big name behind it. If you can just get close to the types of things that will most likely grow you, then you can trust the Holy Spirit to do the rest. I'm going to stop right here because this makes me upset. I want you, in fact, you know what? I'm going to go back to this. You've got to look at this. Look at the language. This is what Dallas Willard said. And Dallas Willard is another one of these contemplatives. Here's what he said. If you can get just close to the types of things that will most likely grow you, then you can trust the Holy Spirit to do the rest. Let me tell you something. I'm trusting the Holy Spirit to do all of it. Anything that I do, that I get involved in, that I'm purpose-driven about, is going to be an absolute failure. That's because I am, thank you, Jazz, that's because I am an absolute failure. I have to get out of the way. And now I want you to notice this. This is works-based salvation. Dallas Willard said, if you do this, then the Holy Spirit's going to do this. That is the Old Testament law saying, if you keep the law, then God will bless you. That's exactly what that is. And I've talked about that I don't know how many times. It's part of witchcraft is what it is. If you perform, God will perform. God helps those who help themselves. That's what he's saying here. And this statement that if you do all this stuff, then you can trust the Holy Spirit. I trust him now. Let me go back to Dallas Willard again. Here is an excerpt from Lighthouse Trails research on Dallas Willard. Tough questions with Dallas Willard and his contemplative propensities. Dallas Willard, Bible study and prayer, not as important as the Christian life as silence and solitude. Here's a quote from Dallas Willard. Indeed, solitude and silence are powerful means to grace. Bible study, prayer, and church attendance, among the most commonly prescribed activities in Christian circles, generally have little effect for soul transformation. That ticks me off. That makes me mad that he said that. Because I'm telling you that it's prayer and Bible study, prayer and Bible reading, and come to church, and then prayer and Bible reading. See, see the technique here. Dallas Willard is saying to you that what all the other churches are doing now, and what Mike Hoggard's doing now, is a failure. It won't work. They're trying to tell you that it won't work. So let's get that. Let's get what? Prayer, Bible reading, and local congregational church attendance. Let's get that out of the way so that we can slip in something else to you. They're setting you up. Okay? It's a setup. Let me go back to it. Here's what else he said. They will have little effect on soul transformation, as is obvious to any observer. See, he's just saying, see, everybody knows that. Come on. If all the people doing them were transformed to health and righteousness by it, the world would be vastly changed. Their failure to bring about the change is precisely because the body and soul are so exhausted, fragmented, and conflicted that the prescribed activities cannot be appropriately engaged and by and large degenerate into legalistic and ineffective rituals. Then he says, lengthy solitude and silence, including rest, can make them very powerful. There he is, setting up. Number one, what you're doing is bad. What I want you to do is good. Simple sales, but it's a setup. If you just remove the Bible, quit praying the old-fashioned way. You know, the old-fashioned way of praying is, dear God, please help me today. Lord, please save my brother-in-law. God, give me healing in my body. God, help me to lead someone to Jesus. God, would you forgive my... That's the old-fashioned way. Nobody prays like that anymore because it doesn't work. What you need to do is you need to empty your mind of every brain activity whatsoever so devils can slip in. That's what they're trying to get to you. So already, we've got John Ortberg, we've got Dallas Willard, we've got these guys. They're contemplatives. They are going to promote a contemplative prayer, spiritual discipline, and spiritual exercise. It is a setup leading you to a trap is what it is. And churches are falling all over themselves for this thing. Okay? Now, let me show you so that, you see the slides there on the website. You watch the little video and you go, I'm intrigued by this. I want this in my life. So you go to the next slide here on the website. It says, how do I get started? Buy. I'm going to stop right there. Okay? Can't go on either. It's going to cost you. Okay? But it's going to be worth it. But it's going to cost you. In order for you... Now, God gave us this tremendous thing here that is going to transform your life. And we'll sell it to you. If you have enough money, we'll sell it to you. Isaiah 55. Turn there. Isaiah 55. Ho, everyone that thirsteth. That reminds me. Hang on here. Ho, everyone that thirsteth. Did you know that you can go anywhere and get water for free? You go to any restaurant in the world, and if you don't want to buy a Coca-Cola, which is now $1.50, you can just say, I want water. Restaurants will give you water for free. Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye buy and eat, yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which